Welcome to the demonstration on web management on a Ruckus ICX switch. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using a ICX 7250 switch. On the switch, I currently have really nothing configured but an IP address. So the IP address is 10.10.200.1. This is the address we will be reaching out to for the web management interface. And right now, by default on an ICX 7250, so by default, web management is enabled on an ICX switch. So let's take a look at that. The show web command shows us our web server, and it shows us that our HTTP server status is enabled, but HTTPS is disabled. So this is the default state for the web server when you first bring up the switch. So like I said, this is a default switch with just an IP address configured on it. So for us to access the web interface, we're going to go ahead and set up a local username and password, and then enable AAA authentication so that we can allow them to access the web server using local credentials. So let's get into configure mode. And we'll set up a username web user with a simple password. Now, I don't recommend using a password of password for anything in a live environment, but for our purposes, this will work. And then we'll enable AAA authentication for our web interface using the local credentials. That's the web keyword identifying this authentication is for accessing the web management interface. Okay, so we're ready. We have a username configured, web user. We've configured authentication for the web interface. So let's bring up a browser and log into this interface and see what we can do now. So we're getting into 10.10.200.1. We're presented with the login prompt. We'll go ahead and log in here with our user. Web user and password. So once we're in, we have full access privileges. We can do anything we want in the switch now. We can make configurations to stacking, to port configurations. We can look at the front panel of the switch and see which ports are active and enabled. There's a ton of information here. So we've just proven we're able to access this switch using AAA authentication to get into the web interface with the local username and password we configured just by default. But this is not probably what you want to do in a production environment. So let's go ahead and jump back over to our switch and look at configuring HTTPS for this and provide some encryption for our connection to the switch. Before we do that, let's take a look at our web server. So in the show web, we still see the same status of HTTP enabled and HTTPS disabled, but we see a session where the user of web user is logged in with super user privileges from an IP address of 10.10.200.100. So that's the IP address of the PC that I connected to it with, and that connection is over HTTP. So let's go ahead and enable HTTPS now. Before we can actually turn on the web management service for HTTPS, we need to generate a certificate on the switch. So to do that, we use the crypto SSL command. So this is crypto SSL certificate generate. And it's creating that certificate. That's successful. So we're good. We have a certificate ready for us. Now we need to go into our web management and enable the HTTPS service. So that's done under the configuration mode with the web-management command. And we're going to use the keyword here. Here are the options. We're going to use HTTPS. So now we've enabled web management for HTTPS, and we can confirm that again with the show web output. And we see here now that HTTPS is also enabled. Now, you'll probably, in a production environment, you'd probably want to disable HTTP access, but for our purposes, what I like to do is make sure that everything works first, and then I'd go back and disable the HTTP server. So let's get in here again, and we will go HTTPS. We get the requisite message, and we understand the risks, and we'll add the exception, and we'll confirm that, and we'll go. So we have a secure connection now, and the little lock confirms that for us. We have an HTTPS connection to the web server. We follow the same logins, and we should be in and be able to do whatever we want here. And once we're in, you see the same interface, nothing different. We have all the same capabilities. It's just now we're over a secure connection that's encrypted between the client PC that's running the web browser and the web server that's running on the switch. I hope you come back for more demonstrations in the future. Thank you.